Welcome back to the restoration series on the Grundig 5195. I've been working quite a lot on the radio recently, but unfortunately there is not much things to show. So let me just give a quick overview of what I did. It's mainly related to cleaning and getting the switches working. Last time I talked quite extensively about the clutch mechanism and the flywheel, and I've been working a bit fine-tuning that one. I sanded off quite a bit more from the flywheel, so now it's turning quite well on both positions. So this is the AM position, this is the FM position, and it's also not hitting the chassis anymore on the side. Also, remember that last time I said that I was suspecting that the flywheel is not an original part of this radio, because it was not fitting and it was hitting the side all the time. Well, I changed my mind. I do think now that it's an original part, but that it's just deformed. So remember I also said it was not circular anymore, and the dimension in one direction, the width in one direction was 2 millimeters larger than the width in the other direction, so it was more an oval shape. But what I now think is that it's simply deformed over the years. See, there is a tube here very close to the flywheel. Even in AM position, it's just a couple of millimeters here between the tube and the wheel itself. And I suspect that over the years this radio has been put in a certain, tuned into a certain station, and it has not been moved, and it has been listened to the same station for years and for years. So this means that the flywheel has been has sat in the same position for a long time, and the heat of the tube here so close to it might have deformed it. So I think that's the best explanation on why the wheel is so deformed in shape. So I also spent a lot of time cleaning the chassis. As you see, it has turned out quite okay. It's not perfect. You see there is the oxidation here, which I mentioned earlier on the chassis, is permanently damaged, has permanently damaged the metal. So it's not dirt which is on here, it's just sort of oxidation. I also spent a lot of time fixing or cleaning the switching, which was a major problem. Some of the switches were not working very well or were not returning to their original position, but now they all should work fine. So for example, this one, which is the stereo button, when it was pressed and you switched the radio off, or you pushed another button, and it didn't come up entirely back into its original position. So now, as you see, it's working perfectly fine. Even if you just do just a small amount of pressure, then it perfectly switches back to the normal position. This was a big challenge, mainly this button and also these two, because those are not classical radio buttons. So a classical radio button is when you push one button and you push another one, then the previous one pops up. This is the classical way of radio buttons. Also the middle three here, they work in that fashion. So if you push one, then the other one deactivates. However, these two, the hi-fi button and the FAAS button, they don't. They are just simple push buttons, on-off switches basically. So if you push the hi-fi, you need to push it again to deactivate. And same thing here for this one, for the ferrite antenna or the automatic frequency control. It's the same thing. And this proved to be an issue because there was, I guess, less tension on the switch to have it back in the original position. So what happened all the time was you could activate it, but then when deactivating it, the switch didn't came back enough. and both of them had this issue. So that also took a lot of cleaning internally. And then there was a third switch which was problematic, and that was I think this one. Yeah, and that was a very simple fix. Basically, there was one of the wires inside going inside here from the tuning condenser into the radio, which was touching the switch, or the I don't know how it's called, the leads with all the switch contacts. But if you push it, you can see that it moves, but when you deactivate it, it moves back. And there was one wire who was rubbing against the side of this bar, which was causing a bit of friction, and that caused the switch to remain stuck in the on position, or didn't want to automatically go back. So how did I manage to get this working again? Well, first of all, first thing I did is I tried with this guy here, Contact WL, which is a sort of universal cleaner fluid, which is very good at removing grime, dust, and nicotine from inside a switching compartment. So I thought, yeah, okay, there is so much dust in the radio, this will fix it. It improved things, but as soon as it dried up, the switch again didn't really want to come up all the way. So it definitely improved it a lot, but the last millimeters of travel that the switch had to do didn't go automatically. So it got stuck on, like, in this position more or less every time. So what did I do then? I took a bit of a more drastic approach. It was the only thing I still had left, let's say. I cleaned the switching inside with Contact 60, which is a quite aggressive contact cleaner, and I would advise you to use this only as a last resort, because it is really aggressive, and if you have to clean the contacts afterwards, because otherwise it just keeps oxidizing and your contacts will be damaged over time. So what you do is you use this Contact 60 contact cleaner, and then you leave it work for a couple of minutes, and then you clean it again afterwards with a spray like this, just to remove the residue of the contact cleaner. I think that already improved it again, but then what really fixed it was then using this one afterwards, Contact 61, which is a sort of lubricant, I guess, for switches, and also provides a protective layer to prevent oxidation in the future. So this trio, the using first the Contact 60, then the Contact WL, and then the Contact 61, that fixed it. And then finally all the switches, also these ones, the hi-fi switch here was very problematic. I had a lot of issues with that one as well, and just after using this method, first this one, then this one, and then that one, it worked perfectly fine. And I let it dry for like 24 hours now, and it's still working fine. So I hope that this now finally fixes all the issues that I'm having here with the switch panel, because it's it was quite a nightmare. It took me quite a few hours to get this working and to get this resolved. And then you also had the balance control, which was completely stuck. It was quite a bit scary actually how stuck it was. I really had to turn it extremely tight to get it moving again. But that one has also been fixed, and same approach. So first I just used the WL and also just some isopropyl alcohol inside, but that didn't really, well, it improved it, but it kept getting stuck and it kept feeling not smooth at all. So I used the same approach, the 60 WL and then the 61, and now it's also working fine, I guess. Well, it feels fine. If it actually works fine, let's see when we'll see when the radio is put together again. Then the next thing I cleaned was also the front panel, which came out really nicely, and the front glass, which also came out very nicely. I cleaned the glass on both sides. The front side is just basically like normal glass, so I just used some normal window cleaner. The back side is much more fragile, and you have to pay a lot of attention when cleaning the back side here. So there I just used some demineralized water very carefully with a cotton swab or some cotton wool, and just very carefully, and drying it up immediately after, because you really don't want to take the paint away from this back glass, I'm saying back glass because of working too much on pinball machines, from this glass plate. Let me show you. So there is some, so the print or the paint is here on the back side. There is a layer here protecting the print, but it's still very fragile, and you mainly want to be very careful when the print is just not protected on places like this here, where you have the bar or the letters which are printed here. Those are the places where you have to be extra careful. So I cleaned it a bit. It's not completely clean, but I'm not going to go further than this, just to be sure. I don't want to damage the black glass or remove the paint in any way. Here the front panel, which is sitting behind the back glass, has come out very nicely. I cleaned everything. I removed the switches, the switch here, cleaned that, put it back. The only problem here is that here the paint is flaking off. So, and the problem is also that this is visible through the back glass. So I'm gonna find some way to touch this up a bit. And this one was also not cleaned, because as you see, I started cleaning here on top, and it just immediately removed the blue color on this I don't actually know what it is. I think it's a condenser. So there is, you have to put there is a lamp inside. It's the indicator to show if the automatic frequency control is activated or not. So it's a sort of condenser, I guess. And I think the blue is also original. I'm not really sure, but I think it is. And so when I started cleaning it, the blue just completely came off. So I just stopped there at the top. So next thing I will do is I will just try to touch this part up here where there is some paint missing. And also, which is quite interesting, as you can see here on the other side, it has already been touched up, because you see there is some paint which is a bit of thicker and which is a bit discolored, and I think this is from the factory. So maybe this panel was installed and the paint was damaged, and then they touched it up again. No idea, but it's already clear that it has been worked on already. And then I also cleaned the knobs. They also came out very nicely. I just cleaned them in the ultrasonic cleaner, and then I buffed the brass rings. So that also came out really nicely. I think it will look fabulous when the radio is put back together. So I mixed a bit of paint here, trying to match the color as much as possible. It's a sort of yellowish white, lots of yellow and lots of white, small bit of brown. It's not that important that it matches exactly, because you will not see it directly anyway. You will just see it through the glass faceplate. Just important that it doesn't that you don't see the bare metal through it. It's still a bit too yellow, but it's really difficult to get it exactly. And also when it dries, the color changes slightly, so you can never really know exactly how it should be. I think I'm gonna just add a small bit of red, just a tiny bit. I feel like I'm Bob Ross now. The colors that I have here actually have the same names as Bob Ross is using in his painting. I have here Van Dyke Brown, and I have Crimson Red, Titanium White. Oh no, Titanium White. So it does feel a bit like I'm Bob Ross at the moment. Yeah, this is matching much more closely. So adding the small bit of red was okay. Shit, it's not mixed completely, but adding a small bit of red was really a good idea. So that's done. The color doesn't match exactly, but it's really difficult to do color matching like this also, because the color will change when the paint is dry. So let's just see how it looks when it's dry. Anyway, I quite like it already how it is right now. Seems to be, yeah, I don't think you will notice it because it's behind the glass of the glass plate, so it's already a lot better than just plain metal. So let's see how it turns out. So the touch-ups have dried, and as you see, they are quite a bit more yellow than the original panel. They darkened quite a bit when drying, but let me just put the glass panel in front of it just to check if this is okay, if you can see it through it or not. So that's with the glass panel in front. As you can see, there's the hole where I did the touch-up in the back, and as you can see there, you can just barely see the discoloration of the touch-up. Well, it's in any case it's much better than just bare metal, but you can still make it out if you know what you're looking for. Honestly, I think it's quite okay. And here the color matching went much better. I also touched up the stripes on the dials. I didn't do anything about the second one, so that one is still completely original, but I just added a bit of paint to the other 3 dials, and as you can see, the color is nearly, well, it's undistinguishable from the original. So there, matching and making that red was very successful. And then on the chassis itself, I checked all the transformers. So this radio has 4 transformers. So this is the power transformer, and then it has 3 output transformers. I checked all of those. It's quite easy to do that if you have a signal generator. So there is on YouTube a very nice tutorial made by Manuel Caldera. I can put a link in the description on how to safely and easily check the output transformers and the power transformers. So what you basically do is you put the signal generator on the primary of the transformers, you put on a very low voltage, and then you check in the on the secondary if there is a signal on the secondary. So with the output transformers, it basically comes down to checking if you hear a tone in the speaker, and for the power transformer, you just check the voltage on the secondary to check if it is what you expect there. So those seem to be fine. That's already very important because those can be a pain to replace. And then I also started checking capacitors and checking resistors on the bottom side of the radio, and most of the resistors I checked were all of the resistors I checked so far are very nicely in spec, so I don't expect any issues there. I did find a small problem. So over there you can see that this wire has been damaged. So the isolation is gone from this wire. So this means that this wire is continuously shorted to ground if it touches the chassis over there. So that's something I need to fix. This would mean that this is the wire controlling the switch for the ferrite antenna or the automatic frequency control. So then I also took a note of all the capacitors that I'm going to change. Typically on this type of radio there are different types of capacitors, and the ones which go out of spec are mainly the paper capacitors. So these ones, they are here from the Eero brand. So as you can see here, this big one, but also all the small ones over there. There you can see also a couple. Those are all paper capacitors, and here you can also see quite a lot of them. So I'm going to change all of those, and then of course also the electrolytic capacitors. So you can see one over there in the bottom, in the red shrink wrapping over there, there is an electrolytic capacitor, and then also of course the filter can on the top of the chassis. So those are the ones that typically become problematic over time. So I marked all of those on the schematic, so I have a clear overview of what I'm going to change. So that's the next thing I'll do, is I'll order all of these capacitors. It's more or less 40 capacitors. So I'll order those, and then in the meantime, while I'm waiting for them to arrive, I think I'm going to start working on the cabinet, because there is also quite a lot of work on that one. I need to repair some damage on the side of the cabinet. I need to clean the grill cloth, and I also need to clean the speakers and check if all the speakers are still okay. So, but that's something that you'll probably see in the next video. So see you then. Bye bye.